Carvana is a publicly traded company with a market cap of $1.78 billion. They sell thousands of vehicles per year across most states in the United States, and whenever you look at the company, it seems as though they really have their act together. But once you start digging in, you will quickly find out that Carvana has a bit of an unsavory history. Between suspended and revoked dealer's license, to delayed title and registration paperwork, to reports of selling stolen or salvaged cars, Carvana has been entangled in their fair share of controversies. In fact, I would go as far as to say that they have far exceeded their fair share. And if you're anything like me, and if you've been following the story of Carvana over the last year or so, you've probably asked yourself the question, how does a billion-dollar company keep screwing up like this? Well, there are a few reasons why. Now, over the last year, I've made a lot of videos about Carvana, covering things like their CEO and his father, specific instances of shady activity, license suspensions and revocations. I have covered most, if not all, of the controversies that Carvana has been embroiled in over the last year. And if you want to check out any of those videos, I will include a few links down in the description below. But today, rather than going into detail about these individual controversies, I instead want to talk about why these controversies are occurring in the first place, and how a multi-billion-dollar company is making pretty rookie mistakes. Now, whenever you look into the variety of issues that Carvana has been experiencing, you are of course going to run into the extreme cases of stolen cars, delayed registration and paperwork, but you're also going to run into much more minor but still annoying issues, like customer delivery delays and cleanliness issues once a customer finally gets their car delivered. But let's first talk about some of these more extreme problems that Carvana has run into, involving things like delayed or non-existent title paperwork, selling stolen vehicles, or stolen vehicles with inaccurate title status. Carvana was founded in 2012, so though they did explode in popularity during the pandemic, they weren't brand new to the scene either. And they were founded by DriveTime Automotive, which is one of the largest used auto dealers in the country. So though all things considered, Carvana was a relatively new company, especially whenever you take into account how much this company grew in 2020, they certainly did have the expertise behind the business to really see it thrive. In fact, the CEO of Carvana, Ernie Garcia III, is the son of the CEO of DriveTime Automotive, Ernie Garcia II, and I have criticized both of these people for extremely poor and questionable business decisions. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting is that DriveTime Automotive hasn't really been involved in any scandals over the years. In fact, if you go onto Google and you search DriveTime Automotive scam, the only articles that pop up are ones about Carvana, not ones about DriveTime Automotive, which I think is funny. And whenever we look at DriveTime Automotive, when we compare that company to Carvana, one of the biggest differences of these two businesses is the timeline in which these companies grew. Carvana exploded in growth in 2020, and truthfully, I just don't think they were ready for that growth. And I don't think the company had the infrastructure in place in order to properly vet cars, to organize and file paperwork properly, and to make sure everything ran smoothly. I believe that Carvana sort of threw everything together in order to keep up with the extreme demand. And as a result, they were doing this quickly and haphazardly, and they were sacrificing quality and accuracy as a result. And this would explain why we see so many different cases of customers who bought cars from Carvana and then have reports of them never receiving the proper paperwork, being misled as to what type of car they're buying, and a slew of other issues that have arisen on more than one occasion. I've said it a lot in my previous videos. Why does Carvana have so much trouble doing something that other car dealerships have been doing for years? And the answer is Carvana did not have the systems and processes in place in order to handle this paperwork at the scale in which they did in 2020. As a result, paperwork got lost, bad cars slipped through the cracks, and I also believe this is why in the past, Carvana has had a reputation of paying a premium for used cars as well. I think it ultimately all comes down to a lack of systemization, organization, and processes for the business. And while I think we can all sympathize with the fact that growing pains in a business is a very real thing, especially whenever you grow at the rate that Carvana was growing in 2021. And I know that I don't necessarily fault Carvana for the growing pains that they experienced. But the thing I do fault Carvana for is their extreme arrogance. And in my opinion, I think that this is problem number 2 for the company. Don't get me wrong, a lack of organization, systems, and processes are absolutely Carvana's #1 operational problem. But one of the things that make people like myself hate Carvana so much is the arrogance of the company. Time and time again, Carvana has screwed up, and there's really no other way to put that. There are hundreds of accounts of people who bought cars and never got the title paperwork, creating huge issues for the buyer. There are dozens of accounts of customers that bought stolen, salvaged, or rolled back mileage cars unknowingly. And there are dozens of state-level investigations that have been done against and into Carvana. And yet, without fail, every single time Carvana is asked for a statement on one of these many issues, they essentially pitch the blame time and time again. When they were investigated for fraud in Illinois, it was deemed by Carvana to be a witch hunt. And the most recent scandal, the stolen Maserati that was sold to a Carvana customer, Carvana simply said the thieves were very sophisticated, making it extremely hard to identify that the car was even stolen in the first place. I've been following Carvana extremely closely over the last year and a half, and I cannot think of a single instance where Carvana has actually owned up to their mistakes and apologized to the people being affected by it. This constant pitching of the blame for Carvana is a major issue, and it's constantly picking away at the integrity of the brand as a whole. And not only is it creating a disconnect between the customers and the company, but it's also creating this environment where Carvana never learns from their mistakes, and instead they make the same mistake over and over and over again, and when confronted about it, they simply blame it on something else. I mean, how many times does Carvana's dealer's license need to be suspended before they pause and think to themselves, are we the problem here? It seems as though Carvana could use a good hard listen to the chorus of Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift.
It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me.
Carvana's arrogance is their own worst enemy, and not only does their arrogance prevent them from improving, but it also hurts the customer perception of the brand as well. But now let's pivot the discussion to more minor issues with the company. Things like delayed deliveries, as well as cars being delivered in less than ideal conditions. If you search Carvana problems, you will find a slew of posts and Reddit threads from people who are either unhappy with the state of their car upon delivery, or people who had their delivery rescheduled so many times that they eventually just canceled it. And this is a problem that's not only rooted in lack of systems and processes, but it's also unfortunately one of the downsides of operating a delivery business model like Carvana. Carvana relies heavily on delivery for their customers, and this delivery is facilitated by delivery drivers, so truckers. This of course creates a problem when there is, say, a trucking shortage, which there has been for a while now. It also creates this disconnect between the person selling a car and the person who's delivering the car. And while I'm certainly not a huge fan of dealerships and car salesmen, I do think that this is one of the benefits of going to a physical dealership and buying a car from a dealer. A car salesman, at least at major dealerships, has a bit of an obligation to keep you, the customer, happy. And as a result, whenever you buy a used or a new car, typically that car will get delivered to you clean, full of gas, and ready to drive off the lot. But that same level of satisfaction just simply doesn't exist whenever you get a car delivered to your door. And oftentimes, this is because of the fact that that car is getting delivered by a truck driver, not the car salesman. And at the end of the day, the truck driver's job is to simply deliver the car. It's not their job to detail the car and make sure it's in perfect condition for you once it arrives. People want to feel good about a new car that they just purchased, and whenever their car that gets delivered to them is dirty or is below expectation, then this leaves a bad taste in their mouth, and this same customer is going to be more likely to just simply buy a car from a dealership next time around. But it is important to know that this isn't necessarily a Carvana specific issue, because I have heard similar complaints with other brands, most notably Tesla. I have seen a number of different accounts from people who purchased a new Tesla from Tesla directly, and then whenever they go pick up their new car, it's dusty, dirty, it doesn't have a full charge. This is definitely one of the byproducts of not going to a car salesman, not going to a dealership, and instead doing a hands-free style delivery. And of course, it does depend on the case-by-case basis and the different circumstances surrounding the delivery. But I definitely think that this is a consequence of this new direction that the automotive industry is heading into, and Carvana is absolutely being affected by that. Now, I think when we dig into Carvana, there are a lot of problematic aspects of the company. I think that Carvana executives and founders are greedy and arrogant, but I also don't think that they are behind some sort of master plan to intentionally screw over as many people as possible, which is a theory that I've seen in a number of my videos over the last year. I think that Carvana grew too fast for their own good in 2020. They were too arrogant to admit their mistakes whenever they made them, and as a result, the mistakes were just simply never addressed, and thus made over and over again. And now with the car market crashing, Carvana is too busy catching a falling knife that they don't have the time, resources, or money to really address the root issues at hand, which is why these problems continue to happen. And these are the main reasons as to why I think that Carvana is a shit show. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell